Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 24th of May of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. The most important and the most interesting updates are coming from the Black Sea. As you can see, there are a lot of icons in this area, and probably you've heard that today the Russian Navy ship was attacked by the Ukrainians' Navy drones, and the Russians are saying that there were at least 3 drones who were attacking the Russian fleet, the Russian ship. There was like intelligence ship. And also the Russians are saying that, as you can see, this blue line, this is the gas and oil pipeline in the Black Sea that goes from the territory of Russian Federation to the Turkey. So the Russians took a decision to deploy a naval fleet in this area, a ship whose main job is to protect this pipeline, because based on the facts on the previous year when the Western countries made a terror on the Russian Nord Streams, so that's why the Russians took a decision to protect the last pipeline in the Black Sea. And the Ukrainians, as soon as this ship crossed this area and entered the Black Sea, the Ukrainians launched their small offensive operation, and they were trying to get this ship, but all those attacks were repulsed. Furthermore, the Russians published a video of those attempts, and as you can see, there is a video, this one, 7-second video. As you can see, this is a drone who is heading in direction of that ship, and that drone was destroyed. So probably all of them were destroyed, but anyway, we can say that the battle of Black Sea has started. The Ukrainians currently have their own fleet. It's a drone fleet, of course, but anyway, we know that this weapon is successful. I believe that since the beginning of special operation, the Ukrainians managed to upgrade these fleets, these systems, and probably this is a very big pain for the Russians. At least this is going to be a very big pain in the future. For now, this pipeline is secured. The Russians hasn't lost this ship, but we'll see what is going to be next. Furthermore, today the Russian sources published that the United States of America launched another intelligence mission above the Black Sea. So as you can see, this is the Global Hawk. Today he was flying above the Black Sea and trying to analyze and to collect as much as possible information from Crimea and probably from the area of the fierce fightings with the drones. And furthermore, for example, from the Russian side, they published another video of military exercises above the territory, on the territory of Crimea. As you can see, there is a smoke that the Russians were sending and making smoke on the territory of the Crimea bridge, and that the whole exercises was about to create the situation and to cover the entire bridge with the fog. And so that was some kind of military exercises. Probably the Russians understand that Ukrainians will make more attempts to destroy Crimea bridge, and probably they have already found some kind of solution, or they were trying to test the system, and probably that was the reason of the flying of the Global Hawk above the Black Sea. They were trying to collect as much as possible information about the situation as well. And that's it about the situation in Black Sea. Let's move further. More updates we received about the head of Ukrainian army, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Zaluzhny. The Russians reporting that he got a shrapnel wound in the head in the Kherson in the early May after a missile strike. Apparently his life was saved, but allegedly he won't be able to work anymore. So that reports were received from the Russian side. For example, the Ukrainians from their side published more photo confirmations about the health and about the activity of Zaluzhny, but currently the Ukrainians are not able, or at least they don't want to show a real video of Zaluzhny dated to today, so with real evidence that everything is okay with this person, as the Russians are saying that probably his life was saved, but probably he won't be able to work anymore and to command with the Ukrainian army. As very high chances that he will be kept as a head of army, as a symbol of Ukrainian forces, because I understand the Ukrainians are not ready to change the head of army and to show their weakness, to show that the Russians do have possibilities to kill anybody using the daggers or something like this. So this is the situation. Furthermore, more updates are coming from Bryansk area. Today the Russian sources finally reported and confirmed that on the 30th of May the 2 aircrafts and 2 helicopters were shut down by the Patriot system. Those Patriot systems that later were destroyed as a result of Dagger attack in Kiev. So this is the Patriots, this is the systems, and we understand that currently this is a very dangerous weapon against the Russian air forces. 4 air units was destroyed less than in 2 hours, and this is a very big problem for the Russians for the usage of guided bombs, because we know that the range of Patriots is very big and the guided bombs can be launched in a distance within 70 kilometers. So we see the gap and we see the problem. Now let's move further to Belgorod. As we discussed yesterday, the Russians completely counter-terrorist operation in this area, and later that night the Ukrainians continue bombing Belgorod using drones, and this is the result of one of those attacks. As you can see, a car damage and the building was damaged in that town as a result of drone attack using the bombs from the drones. Now let's move to the ground and let's start discussing the situation in the ground. The Minister of Defense of Russian Federation reported about successful advances of the Russians in the vicinity of Masyutovka in this area, and they're saying that that was the advances of the 6th Russian army, of the groups of 6th Russian army, just a few squads as I believe. As I understand, and based on the situation, after the Russians managed to establish the bridgehead on the western bank of Oskol River, currently they have secured the flank, they have secured the possibility of the Russians to continue advancing further to the south in direction of Kupiansk. So probably, as I understand, the next target that the Russians will try to establish control over is Sinkovka, and after that they will be able to get the outskirts in the vicinity of Kupiansk. The Ministry of Defense reported that as a result of fierce fightings in this area, the Ukrainians lost 40 soldiers, 2 armored vehicles and 2 artillery systems D-20 and D-30. Now let's move to Liman. There are a lot of very interesting updates on Liman front line, as you can see, and based on the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, and this information is completely confirmed by the Western sources, that currently Bilogorovka appeared in operational encirclement. The Russians continue advancing in the Kremenaya forest from the north, and probably they have already reached the Seversky Donetsk River from the north, and furthermore the Russians continue advancing from Verkhnyakamyanka oil refinery and Zolotarevka to the north in direction of this forest, and currently, as we discussed, the Ukrainian forces in Bilogorovka appeared in small operational encirclement. They still have possibilities, of course, to use fields and valleys to cross this area. I'm just trying to say that the roads, the real roads, like through Grigoryovka and through Verkhnyakamyanska, is under complete Russian fire, drone visible control. Furthermore, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians reported about another destroy of ammo depot of 54th Mechanized Brigade. So this is the 54th Brigade, and they're located in this forest. This is their area of responsibility, and the Russians are pushing in this area. I'll remind you that special unit Akhmat was mentioned in this, was seen in this area, and furthermore, the Russians destroyed another ammo depot of 112th Brigade in Grigorovka, and furthermore, the Russians destroyed another ammo depot of 10th Storm Brigade, Mountain Storm Brigade in Slaviansk. Furthermore, there was some explosions in Zvanivka, so probably another ammo depot was destroyed. So as you can see, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians were mainly concentrated on destroying of ammo depots in this area and fuel depots as well, as I understand. We understand that this is a very big problem for the Ukrainians. If you don't have weapon and ammo to fight, of course nobody is going to fight, and nobody is going to stop the Russian advances with their own bodies and their own lives if you don't have ammo. So that was, we can say, some kind of artillery preparations. The Russians finished the intelligence work, they discovered the ammo depots, they destroyed them, and currently they're mainly focused to capture and to encircle Bilogorovka. I don't think that they will encircle it. The Ukrainians will make a decision to step back, but anyway, this is the things. So, and now you can see this is like the picture of the global scope, and the Russians advancing from the north in direction of Kupiansk, and the global direction is of course Liman and Izyum, and from the south they're attacking in direction of Bilogorovka, and the main direction is Slaviansk. So the Russians took a decision to maintain their northern flank and to begin the preparation of the greatest battle of this year, of this probably century, for Slaviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration, that probably will take place in the end of this year, or the beginning of this battle will be started in the end of this year. Now we're moving to Bakhmut. As we know, today is the last day when Wagner is going to stay in Bakhmut. Tomorrow they will be replaced by the DPR forces. Probably some forces, some instructors, some officers from Wagner's will be there to explain everything to newly redeployed forces. But from the other side, we know that Ukrainians, at least the sources are saying that Ukrainians continue accumulation of their forces on the flanks in the vicinity of Grigorevka and on the south in the vicinity of Bila Gora and Stupachki, so on the north and on the south from Chasov Yar, and probably after the Wagners will be replaced, these forces will launch their counter-offensive operation to newly redeployed forces with hope to push these fresh forces back and to capture more positions on the flanks of Bakhmut. But for now, the Ukrainians still continue the accumulation of forces, but probably from the other side, this is some kind of media campaign trying to force Wagner's to stay as long as possible, not to allow them to be redeployed or something like this. The Russians also reported that as a result of air defense work, they managed to shut down MiG-29 in Grigorevka. Probably this is the newly sent MiG-29 from Poland that are able to carry Storm Shadows missiles. So this is a very big damage for the Ukrainian air forces, I believe. So the Russians reported about some explosions in Konstantinovka. They haven't provided any numbers, but as we understand, this is the railroad station, railroad logistic hub that Ukrainians use for supporting their forces on the Bakhmut bridgehead. Now we're moving to Avdiivka. Avdiivka is the area where the Ukrainians made few attempts to launch their own counter-offensives in this area. They were attacking from Avdiivka, trying to maintain their bridgehead in the vicinity of this area and not to allow the Russians to complete the encirclement and not to allow the Russians to repeat the Bakhmut strategy. And as a result of those attacks, all of them were repulsed by the Russians, and the Ukrainians were forced to step back inside of Avdiivka. Furthermore, the Russians reported that as a result of artillery attack or maybe missile attack, they destroyed another headquarters of 110th Mechanized Brigade in the vicinity of Avdiivka. Few attempts were made by the Ukrainians to penetrate the Russians' defense orders in Marinka and to return positions in the western part, but the Russians hold their positions strongly and they pushed the Ukrainians back, and the Ukrainians were forced to step back without any success in this area. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that the entire losses of the Ukrainians along the Donetsk front line, the losses were around 150 soldiers and 8 armored vehicles, including 1 tank, 2 ammo depots, 1 headquarters, and 1 MiG-29 in the vicinity of Bakhmut. Now we're moving to the South Donetsk and Zaporozhye area. There were no important updates, just regular artillery duels, just regular fightings and the work of their commanders and scout, DRG, and so on. The Russians reported that as a result of those events, the Ukrainians lost 125 soldiers, 3 armored vehicles, and 1 artillery system Stab B. The Russians haven't provided, of course, their own losses, so it's up to you, of course, to believe or not these numbers. I'll remind you that we're using these numbers just to understand which area is the main, which area is very important based on the report of Ministry of Defense. And the final area is Kherson area. Today the Russians reported about explosions in Nikopol, the town that located in front of Zaporozhye power plant, and explosions in Kherson. But also, one more time, no changes on the ground, no big events like destroying warehouses or ammo depots. The situation is stable here. The Ukrainians continue doing some kind of rotation process without any changes on the ground, without any attempts to cross Dnipro River one more time. And that's it for this video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.